What's going on, everyone? It is time to dive into your regularly scheduled content here on the channel, where we dive into one of the best performing decks from the Galactic Championship and arguably the best deck in the format at the current moment. We get to do a bunch of stuff, including playing some games with Kylo Tarkenton today. Before we do, a big thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. Thanks for chatting with me and actually watching the finals live, where we got to see Kylo Tarkenton do some good work before ultimately losing to Taliesin Red. Thank you for so much for supporting the channel. But what do we got going on with Kylo Tarkenton? Why does it perform as well as it does? Well, the first thing is this is more of like an aggro deck. It's more of like an aggro combo deck. Kylo's deploy is like the finisher of the list. You deploy him, you get an immediate attack in, and you finish out the game. In the intermediate turns, in the early turns, we have a bunch of interaction followed by early force units, and in some cases, other units that synergize with Kylo's ability to push through damage. We have Witch of the Mist, Karis, and Secretive Sage as early force units to work with Force Throw and Force Lightning to pump in some really cheap interaction. We have Mig's Mayfell, which is one of the best cards, if not the best card in the entire list, to work with Kylo Ren's ability plus Tarkenton to clear out the earlier portions of the game. We got a little bit more interaction in Power of the Dark Side and Pillage to attack people's boards and their hands. We have a couple of more units, including Long Pike from the resource pile, or just playing as a 4/6. That's kind of obnoxious to deal with. Anakin Skywalker with Heroic Resolve, giving us the -6/-6 potential across two different units. And then, of course, we have all the upgrades that work with Kylo Ren's ability. Sith Holocron is amazing because on attack, you can deal damage to a friendly unit, giving it essentially one resource for +3 power. Hotshot Blaster is usually resource, but can be discarded for +2 power. Infiltrator skill giving us Saboteur to bypass Sentinels. Fallen Lightsaber and Constructor Lightsaber just putting us a bunch of damage on our Kylo. Same thing goes with Battle Fury. And then Snapshot Reflexes to get in an immediate attack. Heroic Resolve to go Overwhelm if you need to do so, or just giving us a Heroism card. And then lastly, Admiral Modi. This is where it becomes sort of a combo list, in that if you get an Admiral Modi down the same turn that Kylo Ren can come down, you could do something like, well, let's say you go Admiral Modi, then you play Kylo Ren, you go Sith Holocron, Snapshot Reflexes, which is a total of 7 resources. You can then deal 2 damage to Kylo, 2 damage to Admiral Modi, plus the Snapshot Reflexes, which is going to give you a total of 7 power, which is 12 damage to base. Immediately readying up Kylo again with Admiral Modi to deal another couple of damage to Kylo so that you can finish out the game with a total of 24 damage in a single turn. That's just one option that you have. So pretty sweet list. It's about getting in early damage and then finishing out with Kylo and controlling the early game with Tarkenton. Let's see what we could do for today's video by diving into some games. All right, to start us off, we've got the Han Blue on the opposing side of the battlefield. This hand is pretty mediocre. I'm going to go ahead and mulligan it just because I am looking for maybe a little bit more interaction in the early game and maybe some Mig's Mayfeld action, but we will have to find out. Okay, this one has Secretive Sage and Karis. I'll resource the Karis, and I'll probably resource the Long Pike just because we can go with Tarkenton on turn 1. Or just keep discarding, upgrades and such to get a little bit more units through. Force Throw looks pretty good. We're going to discard the Sith Holocron just to see what we got. Double Force Throw and Force Lightning. I mean, Force Lightning, I'm going to resource one of them just because Force Throw is so excellent, but we're going to see what my opponent's got. Let's go ahead and I think we're going to immediately Force Throw my opponent. Just because if they have Force Throw, then they're going to discard that to make sure that Yaddle doesn't die, and then they can Force Throw us back, which, well, we could discard a card, but now we can just Force Throw plus another Force Throw if we want to, but I'm just going to attack in for 2. And then I think what we'll do is actually Tarkenton with Force Lightning. And the reason I'm doing this is it's going to disable the ability on Jedi in Hiding, so we don't have to discard. So that's going to be a pretty nice turn of events. Let's resource this Hotshot Blaster. This is going to give us a little bit of smuggle opportunity to get in some extra damage. And we're just going to keep dumping upgrades into the discard pile. Sith Holocron is excellent to drop in the discard pile. And really, we're just trying to avoid a little bit of damage before we can deploy Kylo. My opponent Usually they don't have too many answers. They can sometimes play a Rivals Fall main deck, and if they are, that could be a little bit tricky for sure. Let's go ahead and just discard the Sith Holocron to see what we pick up. It's another Sith Holocron. Sure. Let's go ahead and force throw our opponent just for another trigger of the discard here. They got Forces with me, which, well, that's not really going to do a whole lot against us. Now that it's discarded, another power, we got a Power of the Dark Side, which is actually a pretty nice pickup to knock out this Chirrut, but we'll see what they decide to do here with the Chirrut. Looks like they're going to go Open Fire, which means we're going to go Power of the Dark Side to knock out that Chirrut. Open Fire really doesn't do a whole lot up against us. We're just going to get in some more damage up against their base, and they're going to run out of cards. I mean, they're probably going to hit the Secretive Sage just to get rid of it. And, I mean, we are left with Lom Pike here, which is going to be pretty nice. Ooh, and an Anakin Skywalker coming in. Not going to be all that crazy, to be honest, just because we don't have double trigger with Anakin. So I think I may... Okay, they're going to go... Yeah, I think I'm just going to go with a Lom Pike as the play here. It's going to use a similar amount of resources and similar stats. This Anakin doesn't even kill anything, so not really all that powerful. They're going to pass. We are going to pass. We got another Anakin. We got a Migs Mayfeld. I mean, we got lots of options here. Okay, we are going to deploy a Migs Mayfeld and see if we can stall out the game just a little bit longer. Okay, we're going to go with an Admiral Modi. I think we'll just go ahead and claim initiative. Heroic Resolve, Power of the Dark Side. These are pretty excellent options because now we can go discard the Heroic Resolve to knock out the Yoda. Then we could go ahead and play Anakin to knock out the Chirrut. And then we'll have a ton of upgrades available for potentially some Modi actions here in just a moment. We could even deploy Kylo Ren if we want to. Okay, we're going to get rid of 2 cards. They're going to pillage us. That's fine, actually, because we are now going to go with Kylo Ren deploy. And we're going to go Infiltrator Skill, Sith Holocron, Sith Holocron, Sith Holocron, Heroic Resolve. And my opponent is dead because now we can go ahead and knock out the Admiral Modi with our attack to ready up Kylo Ren a second time. And that's GG. There is nothing my opponent can do. We get to go ahead and deal 2, ready up ability unit, attack in, and it's GG. This is what I mean. This is literally just a combo finish. That is literally the entire base from my opponent with the Admiral Modi trigger. And I only was able to do that because I knew they were going to have Rivals Fall, be the pillage, and that's GG. That's kind of the strength of the deck right here. They even had the double Sentinel, the Chirrut into Chirrut, which can be very obnoxious for us to deal with in some cases. But yeah, that's kind of what the deck is trying to do, guys. That is about as good as it gets in terms of what I was hoping to see. I mean, it literally just couldn't get better than that. They even had the Pillage main deck, which is not something that I'm used to seeing in Han Blue's case, but awesome stuff. Into our next matchup, we get ourselves a Han Tarkin Town, which is going to be pretty cool to see. I'm going to go ahead and resource these 2 cards, and then I am just going to pass. If we stall out a couple of actions and we go back and forth to where we are closer to 7 resources, I am going to be very happy with this game. They could have Daring Raid still, which is a card that is very likely for them to be playing, period. Now we get to go ahead and discard a card to knock out their Mining Guild TIE Fighter. Daring Raid is really the only card I'd be scared of. And the fact that we drew another Migs Mayfeld means that I am pretty happy with where we're at in the game, because we could just constantly knock out units over and over and over again to go ahead and finish off my opponent's game plan. And honestly, they are just immediately conceding because Migs Mayfeld is going to just rapid fire every single one of their units down, and they're not going to be able to deploy Han on something, and they're not going to be able to do anything in this game. It is pretty disgusting, and that's part of the power of Kylo Ren. There you go, game number 2. Into the next game, and I've got a pretty fantastical hand here. I'm gonna go ahead and resource. Do I want to resource the Pillage? I actually think I do like Pillage in this spot. I'm gonna go Migs Mayfeld. And then we do have the Power of the Dark Side, which is going to be pretty nice. Let's go ahead and discard the snapshot reflexes to hit the Acolyte of the Beyond. I will go ahead and just knock out the Acolyte of the Beyond with that trigger. And we're just going to keep piling on upgrades. My opponent, again, could have Power of the Dark Side, which is something I got to think about. They've got Ogdo Bogdo. We're just going to go ahead and attack in for 2. They could go ahead and deal 1 and deal 1. But now we are going to discard the Constructed Lightsaber, hit their base for another 2. We're going to Power the Dark Side so they get rid of their Ogdo Bogdo. And we're going to pass. And now, I mean, we have a Long Pike in the resource pile, right? Yep. We're going to resource this Karis, because we will have the Anakin Skywalker for later on in the game. I'm going to discard this Battle Fury to get in for another 2 points of damage with the Migs Mayfeld, and I'm going to pillage my opponent's hand, which is going to make it very difficult for them to really utilize anything here. Let's go with attacking with Migs Mayfeld. Let's go ahead and discard the Battle Fury to hit their base. Reminder, my opponent cannot go ahead and attack with the Ogdo Bogdo because they do not have the Force. We're going to go ahead and attack their hand just to make it that much more difficult to actually interact with us. And so they have to really make plays because they have to end the game relatively quickly. But they also have to keep a lot of cards in their hand so that they can actually play the game, right? They need Force to make things like Force Lightning and Force Throw viable. They can't attack in with Ogdo Bogdo. They can't use the Darth Maul action. It is a really tough position for my opponents to be in. Their Grand Inquisitor is now on the board. Let's go ahead and just attack in for 2 with the Migs Mayfeld. If they make us discard, that's fine. Looks like they have a Night Sister Warrior. That's also fine. I am just going to play out the Long Pike. And then I'm actually going to discard a Long Pike just to deal 2 damage more to their base. Power of the Dark Side coming in. Let's resource the Karis. They have a lot of cards in hand. Ooh, that is an Anakin. They are going to hit for a little bit of damage here. Let's go in with an attack in. We'll put a shield token on Anakin. And a shield token on Long Pike. And then we will go ahead and just discard this Sith Holocron. That's a Hotshot Blaster. I do like Hotshot Blaster in most scenarios. Then use Darth Maul. Let's see what they decide to hit. Let's go with Anakin and let's shrink down the Ogdo Bogdo, actually. The reason I'm doing it this way is because I actually don't really care about my opponent getting in damage to the base. And in fact, they are kind of ignoring us anyways, which I'm totally fine with. And we are going to see how much damage I actually have in the discard pile, because right now I have Battle Fury, Constructed Lightsaber, Sith Holocron, Snapshot Reflexes. So if I go, let's say, Constructed Lightsaber, Sith Holocron, that's 7 damage. 8 damage. That should be enough. That should be exactly enough. Well, not quite exactly, but that should be enough because we're going to deploy Kylo. We're going to go Sith Holocron, Constructed Lightsaber, Snapshot Reflexes, Trigger, Attack, deal 2 damage to something, GG. And that is what Kylo Ren is trying to do. Disrupt your early game plan from your opponent, get in damage, Kylo Ren finishing off the game. That is picture perfect what we're trying to do. GG. I realized to stop the recording before this person added the love your YouTube, so shout out to Gradioactive, and we're just gonna hop into the next game here. I didn't want to not put that part in the video because I always like to shout out the people that are such great sports in the game here. Let's move on to the next one. We've got Major Vonreg Yellow here. Let's see what we got. Pretty weak hand overall. I'm gonna mulligan this one. I'm thinking my opponent's gonna have a lot of space units. Usually that's what Vonregs are trying to do. Wow, this is a lot of upgrades, but I actually do like this hand quite a bit. We have the Anakin with already the villainy card in hand, and we do have Migs Mayfeld, which is a very, very good turn 1, even though we don't have turn 2 or 3 or 4 planned out. We could definitely draw into a lot of cards by using Kylo's action, and there's bound to be something that we're going to pick up here as we go along. So let's just go with the Migs Mayfeld. And do I even care about the Zygerian Starhopper? I think based on what my hand looks like, I will go ahead and hit the Zygerian Starhopper with the 2 damage just because, Force Lightning, that is actually a good one. I think I'm going to resource one of the Anakins because if we're deploying 2 Anakins in a game here, that's probably not a good thing for us. So I do want to probably just knock out a few of their units here and see what I can do as I go along. I don't think my opponent's going to have a lot of interaction. I mean, they could, because they are playing aggression, which means they could have things like Daring Raid. But with Karis and Force Lightning, that means we probably can knock out another unit, and that means the Tarkin Town's going to be pretty good. If they just go with immediate Daring Raid on Mixed Mayfeld, I'm just going to go ahead and Tarkin Town their Zagirian Starhopper, and then probably go with Karis plus something else, but we will end up seeing here. I'm definitely discarding an upgrade here if I have the opportunity to, just to knock out the Zagirian Starhopper real fast. Although I could Force Lightning the Zagirian Starhopper, so it really depends on kind of what my opponent is going to do here, because they can play a vehicle to give something, you know, 2 power. Let's just go ahead and attack with Migs immediately. I think if they had a way to deal with Migs, they would try to go with the kill on Migs as the first action. They have Death Space Skirmisher, and that's exactly what I mean. Now we can go Karis plus Force Lightning on the next turn. Let's go ahead and discard the Sith Holocron. Let's go ahead and, ooh, this is really nice because now we have a lot of options. We're going to go Force Throw on my opponent, because now we have a Force unit. Now we can knock out both of these units on this turn, which is going to be amazing. And then we have Force Lightning for the next play that they have. This is absolutely disgusting. They got No Good to Being Dead. We'll knock out the Zagirian Starhopper. I know I could take damage to the base, but I think it's just worth to go 2 damage on the Karis. My opponent probably doesn't have any access to anything. We're just going to Tarkin Town away immediately. Let's go ahead and resource this Secretive Sage. We're going to discard the Constructed Lightsaber and go with the Force Throw. Again, if my opponent's going Daring Raid, that's really not that scary for me at this point in the game. And they Daring Raid the Karis, which means they're not Daring Raiding the Migs Mayfeld. So I am pretty happy with that position that I'd be in. Let's go ahead and attack in for 2 with the Karis, and then we'll see what my opponent's got as a follow-up. And it will depend kind of what they do here. Okay, they're going to put Von Reg on the space unit, which means we're going to be using the Migs Mayfeld trigger just to knock out the shield token. And then, yeah, this is just disgusting. We're going to go Force Lightning, all 4 resources. Boom, that's GG. I mean, I don't really know what they could do to come back in this game at that point. I mean, we have dealt with every single one of their units. We've been putting on pressure. We even have the Sith Holocron plus Constructed Lightsaber and Heroic Resolve in our resource pile for when Kylo flips. Next turn, we've got Anakin for -6/-6 or -3/-3 times 2. The game feels disgustingly over. And this is the power of Kylo Ren right here. Just amazing disruption in the early game into an immediate win con in Kylo Ren himself after doing a little bit of damage to your opponent's units. And if they're playing a deck like this, they're not going to really have any answers to it unless you're playing Vigilance Villainy. That's really the only way to get rid of it. Let's go ahead and discard the Snapshot Reflexes. I'll deal 2 damage to the base just because now we can go with an Perilous Position and knock out my opponent's units here. So we can go Perilous Position, attack in for 4, pass. We've got another Karis. I can resource here. Anakin Skywalker is going to be infinitely more useful at this stage of the game, even if we don't end the game with Kylo. I mean, let's go ahead and just attack in with Karis. I mean, this feels so brutal, right? This feels so absolutely disgustingly brutal. We can hit them in the base. We can go Anakin -3/-3. And then we pass. Guys, I mean, what are we doing here? It's so unfair. It's just ridiculously unfair as to what we are doing to them right now. Yeah, and they just concede. It is just so brutal. Like, that is a ridiculous game. And that is what Kylo Ren Tarkin Town was doing the whole weekend. Broken. Alrighty, Migs Mayfeld is, of course, the best card in our deck, but we're going to keep this one. I am pretty happy with this one. I'm going to resource the Secretive Sage and probably this Anakin, because we do have a pretty nice hand in Witch of the Mist plus turn 1 Force Throw up against our opponent's Dooku deck. Now, they could have the Droid Deployment as an opportunity for them. Looks like they have Kajimi Patrollers, which is going to be pretty nice, but we're going to go. Ooh, there's a Migs Mayfeld. I'm going to Force Throw my opponent, hit something with this Force Throw, obviously. And then we're going to go Migs Mayfeld plus potentially Force Lightning on next turn. But I mean, I like our start, right? My opponent's not going to have the card amount to be able to play units and also exploit them in this game. They're not going to have ways to really kill off our units. I mean, yeah, They got rid of the Banking Clan shuttle. We get to get rid of the Kajimi patrollers. Let's pass. We got another force throw plus a Migs Mayfeld here. That is literally the perfect draw, because now we can play Migs Mayfeld, force throw them, get the trigger from Migs Mayfeld and the force throw trigger. It is absolutely disgusting what we're able to do here with Migs and Kylo, guys. Oh my gosh, is this game just absolutely nasty. Even if they get rid of the Witch of the Mist, that's fine, because we could still go Migs Mayfeld and the trigger off of force throw. So I am very ecstatic to see what we're going to be able to do here. Migs Mayfeld, let's go ahead and force throw our opponent. Again, we're going to get 2 triggers here, one from Witch of the Mist, one from Migs Mayfeld. Probably just knocking out both units if they discard something like 4 costs. So we get 4 damage here and then 2 damage to the base. Let's pass. Wow, that is disgusting. We'll keep both Force Lightnings in hand, because they're going to want to deal with Migs Mayfeld. If they don't, then we just combo off every single turn. Guys, I mean, what? This deck is just disgusting. I mean, are you watching this? It is so good. What a brew from Bot the Network. Absolutely incredible gameplay here. It is so nasty. Next up against Double Red Luke. This is going to be a fun one. If we get the Migs Mayfeld, which we did, I am feeling very, very confident about this game. The Anakin Skywalker is going to be the resource, and I think the Power of the Dark Side is also going to be a resource here. I'm probably going to be going with the Witch of the Mist force throw into Migs Mayfeld. Discard? I don't know. Pillage looks pretty good here as well. Ooh, thank you, Rafa, for the commentary on loving the videos. Absolutely love it when I meet up with a lot of you in the Carabas games here. So big shout out to Rafa here. Guys, definitely say hi if you see me in one of your games. I try to look out for it even more so than lately, because I know how much you all flame me in the comments if I miss you all in the chat here. So really cool to see. Let's go ahead and force throw our opponent. Again, we're here to force throw. Even if they don't discard a 3 resource play, I think I'm just going to immediately Tarkin Town away something. So we're going to hit their units. We're going to pass. Heroic Resolve, Fallen Lightsaber. I'm going to keep the Pillage in hand, because now we can go Migs Mayfeld plus discard the Heroic Resolve for 2 damage. Plus Tarkin Town. That's a nasty curve right there. Let's get in for 1 point of damage. Let's go Migs Mayfeld. Let's discard the Heroic Resolve. Hit the red 3. Let's Tarkin Town that away. Pass. And I mean, what else can my opponent do realistically at this stage of the game? They can deploy a space unit, yes, but they've got so many things to deal with, especially since Pillage is going to come down and knock out their entire hand here. Even if they do deal with Migs Mayfeld, they're going to have 0 cards in hand, which is going to make it very tough for them to deal with what's going on in general. Yes, they're going to go aggression, probably discard a card or draw a card and knock out Migs Mayfeld. Pretty clear what they're going to try to do here. That's fine. Knock out I mean, they have a choice, right? There's a force unit or there's the Migs Mayfeld. Wow, they hit the force unit. I don't think that was the right play. But you know what? My opponent doesn't really have many options. Anyways, let's go with Pillage on our opponent. I know I could play a Karis here, but I'd rather just utilize all the resources that I have. And then I could play multiple cards next turn. It's really tough. My opponent really doesn't have many options in this game. Anything that they do is just really, really tough for them. I think taking out the force unit is something that's viable, because we have force throws and force lightnings. But Migs is just such a broken card in this deck that it's really tough to do anything but take out Migs Mayfeld. They've got a medical frigate here, huh? Okay, medical frigate coming in. Let's go ahead and discard this perilous position. We're going to hit the medical frigate. We're going to go Karis Force Lightning and hit that for 2. So it's going to knock out that unit. Pass. We're going to resource this Witch of the Mist. And we've got Heroic Resolve as the discard option. And I don't really care even if they do get some units down, because we have a bunch of things in the discard pile to go ahead and play on our Kylo Ren when he comes into play, which is kind of the game plan, right? That is the entire game plan of this deck. We'll see what they do. They don't have any units to deploy Luke on, which is kind of the whole game plan, right? That was the game plan, was to knock out as many units as possible so that they couldn't deploy Luke and couldn't use the Luke action. So we'll see what ends up happening here. Are they going to deploy Luke? The one way this could have gotten risky is if they go like aggression to ready up a wing and knock out a unit. This one can't be defeated by enemy card abilities, but that's okay because we got Force Lightning. And Force Lightning actually does take out Luke here. So we're going to pay 1, and then we're going to pay another 3 to knock out Luke. It's going to disable the abilities, but also it's just going to deal damage. Let's go ahead and discard the Heroic Resolve, hit in for a couple points of damage, hit for 2, pass. And there is the Admiral Modi, which is, well, something that we're very excited about. I probably should have just resourced it because I don't have a Sith Holocron in the resource pile. But if I do get a Sith Holocron off of this discard from Snapshot Reflexes, we're going to be pretty happy. We're going to be pretty happy. There's a Rebellious Hammerhead. They're finally knocking out the Migs Mayfell, which I think is a good play. But I think it might be just a little bit too late. Let's attack in for 2. And then I think we just deploy Kylo Ren. Even if they have an aggression, it is still pretty good for us. We're going to go Constructed Lightsaber. And then Heroic Resolve. Not a fantastic play by any means in terms of the amount of damage that we could get in there, but it's still good enough for the most part. I don't see us really losing this game. Even if they have aggression here, they could defeat 2 upgrades. They've got stay on target to get in some damage. Yeah, defeat 2 upgrades and deal 4. That doesn't actually kill Kylo, but we could go ahead and hit in for a good chunk of damage, and that's going to be GG. And this is the beauty of Kylo Ren. It is not just like, okay, Kylo Ren finishes the game. It's constant disruption, even up against that deck that had the aggression to knock out a unit and deal some damage. I mean, this is what the deck does. My opponent didn't get a single attack in for the most part up until the final turn of the game. That is absolutely brutal. And that's kind of what the deck does the entire game. Keeps you off units, and then combo finishes you with the Kylo Ren attack. It is gross. All right, into the next hand, and this is a perfectly reasonable hand, but I'm going to mulligan this one because I think we could do a little bit better. And, well, this one is pretty reasonable as well. I think I'm going to resource the Snapshot Reflexes, actually, but I'm going to go with the Secretive Sage just because it's a shielded unit. Then we get to go Force Throw on the next turn, plus Karis, plus discard the Heroic Resolve. If they have some other thing to play. I like the Secretive Sage just because it is a card that won't die to a Daring Raid, which this deck does play. Oof, that is a fantastic pickup. In fact, it's so good, I'm just going to stall out an action here. I didn't even use Kylo's action here because I'm hoping... Okay, they got Sanctioner Shuttle. That is exactly what I wanted to see, because now we can go ahead and do everything that I wanted to, which is discard a card, Heroic Resolve, knock out the Sanctioner Shuttle. They could get in some damage, but we'll target down the Sanctioner Shuttle, and then we're going to Force Throw my opponent to deal another damage to their other unit, and this ended up working absolutely fantastically. Absolutely amazing situation for us. Can't really get much better than that. That's kind of what our deck is trying to do. Let's go with the Power of the Dark Side. See if we can pick up an upgrade from the... Oh my gosh, it's a Force Throw. It's even better. Let's go Force Throw, opponent. Oh my gosh, this deck is gross. How is this even allowed? How is this even allowed? Are you seeing this, guys? What is going on? This deck is so dumb to see. I mean, yes, those are some great draws. Yes, we drew the Migs Mayfield. Yes, we got double Force Throw. Yes, this was a fantastic draw. But I mean, what can my opponent do? They literally played out their entire hand. We got rid of their entire hand and entire board, and we are left with 2 cards in our hand and 2 units on the board. I don't even know what else to say. I don't even know what else to say. It is so disgustingly one-sided that I don't even know what else to say. I mean, Migs Mayfeld is just a dumb card in this deck. All right, into the next hand, and we're going to mulligan this one. Double Pillage up against Han Egred isn't exactly what I want to be seeing. It's an okay hand. As I said, though, Migs Mayfeld is really what I'm looking for. This is a fantastic hand. Power of the Dark Side on turn 2. Migs Mayfeld as an answer to a bunch of early drops. If my opponent doesn't have Daring Raid, I mean, the game is pretty much over, to be honest. If they do have Daring Raid, I mean, they might have a chance, right? Because they can go unit, Daring Raid on the Migs Mayfeld, which they do have. That's exactly what they were expecting. And now we get to go power the dark side. And this is kind of the situation that I was considering. We're going to go power the dark side on their Cartel Turncoat. That's the second Force Throw. Now we're just looking for a unit to utilize Force Throw with. They have a Millennium Falcon. Okay, this is exactly what I wanted to see. Now we're going to resource the Anakin because we have so much value in our hand that I'm quite happy to just resource the Anakin. Power the dark side on the Millennium Falcon would be pretty good, and I may go with that direction. Let's go Witch of the Mist. Let's see if they have another Daring Raid. They have C-3PO. C-3PO with Bo Shek. All right, they have piloting for 2. Let's go with Force Throw opponent. And then we have another Force Throw. They're going to hit the Mining Guild TIE Fighter. We're going to hit them for 1. They're going to go play Bo Shek. I think Power the Dark Side actually would have been a better play. They discarded a Millennium Falcon and a Cartel Turncoat. They're going to do a little bit of damage here. Or we're going to do a little bit of damage to them, rather. We're going to go in and Target Town away the C-3PO. We're going to discard the Sith Holocron. We grabbed another Sith Holocron. Let's pass. And let's see what we have on the following turn. It's a Battle Fury, a Power of the Dark Side, and another Force Throw. Well, we drew triple Force Throw. I probably should have gone with Power of the Dark Side initially because my opponent just has so many 1-drops where Force Throw really isn't going to do a crazy amount here. They can deploy Han onto the Millennium Falcon here, but that's really risky. If they do that, then I just Power the Dark Side away all of it, and the game is basically over for them. So I think my opponent has to be a little bit careful here. I definitely think I should have Power the Dark Side away the Millennium Falcon. That would have been the way better game plan than what I ended up going with. They're going to Plo Koon here. We are going to... Well, I suppose we'll just Power the Dark Side away whatever unit they have, which is going to be the Plo Koon. And then my opponent is probably going to pilot onto the Millennium Falcon. That is what I kind of wanted to see. That is an Admiral Modi, but we're still 2 turns away, and my opponent has kind of the finish here. In 2 turns, they could definitely close out the game. Let's go ahead and claim initiative. They got a Millennium Falcon. That's enough right there. That is enough damage. Let's see what we pick up here on the next turn. It's got to be something very, very good. Ooh, Perilous Position is a very, very solid one. That does allow us to live for the next turn. Let's go ahead and shrink down that Millennium Falcon. And they are going to Han in. Ooh, that makes it very, very risky. That is going to be GG for us. I think that mistake of, not doing the Power of the Dark Side definitely closed out the game for us. A little bit of a missed sequence on that from me. And that ended up costing us the game. Absolutely sweet games with my opponent here. Very, very close. They ended up drawing just enough cards to get rid of. And as I said with the Daring Raid is the card we have to worry about because it can knock out the Migs Mayfeld. So I could have stalled on a little action or could have gone with a different card here in the earlier stages of the game. If I had a Migs Mayfeld early, the game is completely over. That's why they have to be able to deal with it. So Daring Raid is 100% the card that we have to be on the lookout for. But I think I should have Power the Dark Side initially. I was just not thinking that they would deploy a C-3PO. I was thinking that they would deploy something else in the space arena that I'd be able to deal with. And that wasn't the case. Very, very close game. I think if we were just able to kind of get down, or they weren't able to draw a bunch of cards with the Bo Shek, because they were able to draw 2 cards with Bo Shek, as well as I think they drew one with C-3PO. That was kind of the critical moment because we couldn't get rid of all the cards in their hand, and that ended up winning the game for them. So really sweet game, and that's the Han 4 Target Town right there for you all. All right, so what did we learn with the Kylo Target Town today? Guys, the deck is just disgusting. It is truly a disgusting list. It makes your opponent, honestly, this deck might be more frustrating to play against for some lists than JANGO. And that's saying something. it completely runs over the early game. We had a couple of really great draws with multiple force throws, but even just Migs Mayfeld, if you don't have an answer to it, it is really tough to deal with. I think one of the things that I would definitely add in the sideboard for me is a Shadowed Intentions. This is something that I noticed can definitely do some good work up against some matchups, but oftentimes you don't even need it. I just think the one of Shadowed Intentions can definitely do some work. But outside of that, I mean, this deck, the combo finish we saw with Admiral Modi, we saw just getting in early damage and controlling the board and killing you with a bunch of tutus, and then maybe finishing off with a Kylo. The value in this deck is just so high. It is amazing to see. Definitely give this a shot if you haven't already. It is an incredibly fun list to play and an incredibly infuriating list to play against. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all for the next one.